of a house church. So I'm really excited about that. And I do have to just remind you, Jay, that we're no longer a priest or rabbi.
Well,
and a minister. Again, I don't mind if people want to think of me as a goddess, but I am not a priest.
We can change. We certainly can change the name to a goddess, a minister, and a rabbi. Walk in.
But I think we came up with Franklin Faith Forum. Yes.
Is that okay?
That's the new name.
That's the name we said. Okay, Franklin Faith Forum. It's right on the top of my outline. So if I had read that, Rabbi, so that should explain a lot of it. Yeah, I missed that. Okay, good. Awesome. That's great about the thrift shop.
Yes.
That's really
Thrifty
neat.
Threads, I think they're calling it.
Next, we'll go on to Rabbi Tom Albert and check in with the rabbi.
How are you, Jay?
I am doing great, thanks.
Good. So there is a gigantic amount going on here at Temple Etz Chaim. So let me start on a personal note. I spent a week since we last met in Israel at the convention of the Central Conference of American Rabbis. It's a fascinating time to be in Israel, and I've put together some notes about it, which I have put into a blog, and I will send out to the congregation and to everybody else soon. But it was amazing. Meanwhile, at the temple this past Monday night, we celebrated Purim, and following a tradition, a centuries-old tradition, we did a play based on the Purim concept. This one focused as a Sesame Street theme, and had so everybody was in costume, kids, grown-ups. We all had a great time. It was a big crowd. We had a lot of fun. And now we're starting to get ourselves ready for Passover.
The question that I am thinking of, and I'm sure it's on everybody's mind right now, what character were you?
So I have a tradition in the congregation of always playing Haman, who is the wicked character. I think it's always sort of fun. But part of the idea of Purim is everything is kind of upside down. So it's especially appropriate, I think, for the rabbi to play the most villainous character and have everyone boo the rabbi. So I was, which in Sesame Street terms meant it was Oscar the Grouch.
Okay.
So I was very helpful. Congregants provided me with a trash can with the word "scram" on it, and so I wore that and wore a green shirt and a green wig and tried to look Oscar-y.
That's awesome. It strikes me that Sesame Street, which was around when you and I were younger,
yes,
obviously when you folks, that it's still around, still going strong. It's unbelievable.
It is remarkable on Sesame Street because part of the reason that this worked, I think, incredibly well is that the older generation, pretty much anyone under the age of 70, remembers it either mainly from themselves, sometimes for their kids, but they remember it. And then all the way down to the little kids who are still into it and still get it. And
which is amazing, consider at least when we were growing up, you had 3 channels you could watch, maybe 4. Now kids have so many options that to see them turn to shows like Sesame Street, which provides such a positive culture, and it's one of the few shows out there that you can recommend to kids and adults.
I don't want to break it to you, Jay, but I think the kids actually don't so much watch it on TV as stream videos. Just
I'll pretend you know. I still have a tube TV in my basement.
Turning up at a particular time to watch a particular show, that just does not happen.
I will say I have spent way too much time streaming shows over the last couple of weeks being homebound. So, all right. And now we'll talk to Pastor Jacob Junker. How are things with you?
Things are going well.
Yeah.
At the church, we are marching our way through the season of Lent. And as we approach Holy Week, we have a series of services coming up. So we will celebrate Palm Sunday.
Recording in progress.
Forgot the most important thing.
Do you want me to go?
Yes, go for it, Jeff.
All right. Good evening. Welcome to the Franklin Conservation Commission's OSRP meeting for May 4th, 2023. The topic tonight is habitat protection ecosystem restoration, and other conservation lands. This open space and recreation plan meeting is available to be attended in person and via the Zoom platform. In an effort to ensure citizen engagement, citizens will be able to dial into the meeting using the provided phone number, or citizens can participate by copying the link. And that link is https://us02web.zoom.us/j/869-277-43147, or call on your phone 929-205-6099. The meeting number is 869-2774-3147. And finally, if you are having trouble accessing through the link, please call on your phone and use the *6 to toggle between the mute and unmute, and *9 to raise your hand. If you wish to attend in person, the meeting is held in the council chambers, second floor of the municipal building. And with that, Bridget, I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Sure. So this format's going to follow very similar to what we've had before, where now this is just a brainstorming session for any resident thoughts on habitat restoration and protection, ecosystem restoration protection, or any open thoughts for other conservation lands. Throughout this civic engagement process for open space, we've talked about forest stewardship plans, which is a great DCR funded program which lasts 10 years for properties of a certain acreage with a certain amount of forested land on there for the town to receive grants, get volunteer stipends, also really just get a historical perspective of the ecosystem from an actual forester as a part of this plan. So we've definitely talked about that. That's on the horizon for other conservation areas in town, specifically the Riverbend property on the north of Franklin. That's the next one that I'm working on. The Conservation Commission has recently approved 4 habitat and ecosystem restoration projects at Delcart. Well, I guess it's 1 project, but 4 components, my bad. With 3 biodiversity areas and designated turtle habitat. We could include also the beaver deceivers in that, so that's definitely a habitat protection, ecosystem protection sort of work project. So really, again, this is just an avenue for anybody and everybody to chime in with their ideas. I know there's been a lot of comments about invasive species removal. A lot of residents wrote into the survey that they would like the invasive species removed, checked. This is my general shout out to anybody that would like to go and remove invasive species. You have my full backing. Please just give me a call, send me an email, and I can definitely help guide you in that process and make sure that you are doing it in a manner that does not cause adverse impact. But I think I speak for everybody that we would fully support that. And would love the public initiative. And we've talked about daylighting, but also retrofitting culverts or wildlife crossings. That's the stream crossings, Michael, that you really liked. I think it was you, right? That you liked the fisheries, the streams, thinking about stream habitat, aquatic connectivity. Maybe I'm.
Might have been.
Might have been? Yeah, okay. Fine. So there's definitely that would fall under the umbrella for habitat protection, ecosystem restoration. Being a little bit of a Freddy foreshadower here into the rest of the evening, several residents have approached me looking to restore their property, and we don't have an official permit for that. We do and we don't. So planting of native species, conversion of impervious to pervious ground cover, vista pruning, things of that nature are all exempt under the Wetlands Protection Act, but not necessarily under our local bylaw. Additionally, a lot of restoration work, which I think you have learned or already knew anyways does occur within that no disturb zone, because you want to get right down to that bank or toe of slope or boundary line. So our permits, specifically the MBZA and our regs, don't encourage restoration, but it also doesn't discourage it either. So we do have 2 residents so far that have approached me that want to restore their property, and I've suggested they file an MBZA, but the fee is waived. That way that fee can go to actually buying plants, you know, doing the work, since it's not, it's positive.
What exactly do they want to do?
What do they usually, so one resident wants to plant native species, which you'll hear later tonight. And then another, she actually just moved here, and is learning about invasive species. And she had a very, very nice, wholesome thought process that she was going to remove all of the Phragmites in her wetland, that she shares with her neighbors, which is a really nice thought, but definitely a really, really big burden for one resident to take on, especially since eradication of Phragmites isn't as easy as hand pulling. Usually you have to burn it repeatedly year after year after year, which will not.
You can use some interns.
I could use some interns. Yes, that's exactly right. Yep. So in her case, what we're doing, what I've talked to her about anyways, she'll be on the next public hearing, is just pulling out what she can right on the boundary line and then replanting with some other aggressive native species to at least curb the Phragmites from climbing up her slope. And then she will plant, you know, up that slope, going away from the boundary too. So that's something that the Conservation Department anyways is looking to mitigate. Probably after the open space plan, you get together with Mark Sorrell, especially when we're redoing bylaws and regs and things like that. So, anybody? Robert, Roger? Okay. Let's see. I will take this time, since we're here, then, and we're just kind of spitballing. I could read some of the responses from the survey.
Sure.
That would work. Specifically those that pertain to this topic. So, give me 1 second.
And it looks like we have at least one person in Zoom land.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Robert. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't see your hand raised.
No worries. Good evening, everybody. Robert Kearns with the Charles River Watershed Association. Great to see everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to the commission and about the open space plan. We're definitely very interested in ecological restoration, the culvert work. We're just in town today doing some assessments. It's part of the flood model, looking at some culverts on the cold water stream, trout stream. It's called Shepherd's Brook in town. I know the town has gotten some grants to do some of these culvert replacements, and we definitely want to support the town in those efforts to help increase aquatic connectivity and habitat, connectivity for fish and wildlife. Additionally, any opportunities for restoration of streams, dam removal where feasible, definitely interested. And I'm blanking on in wetlands restoration. I don't think there's any cranberry bogs in town, but
No.
that's another option the state does. But the other thing that speaking of the invasive species, we do have a program and where we can be a resource. We do a volunteer program for corporate groups and other volunteer groups to remove invasive bittersweet and other invasive plants. So if there's any places in town that are a priority, you can definitely let me know, Brika, and we can be a resource there. I know we've done some in other communities. I don't know Franklin specifically, but we've worked with conservation commissions and staff to help facilitate this, because we have, like I said, groups who like to do some polls. So just offer to be a resource, and I think that's it. But just very interested in all the stuff you guys are doing, Delcart. I'm not as familiar, but I know there's been a lot of talk around there for work. So yeah, just to say we're a resource, and thank you for all you guys are doing at the town, and love to support you guys' work. So thank you.
Thanks, Robert. You actually reminded me, being from CRWA. So last year, I don't know if you know this, we had a really bad drought. And I'm being funny, but trying to anyways. I was at the Charles River, just checking on some things, and on the Franklin Medway line there, you could walk it. You could just walk it. And there were car batteries, there were tires, there were a lot of things actually in the river. And not that we can fully make it a positive, right, when we have a drought, but at the same point, that lends us an opportunity to at least pick up our river. So that was something that I had that idea last year, and this year I was tentatively waiting to see if we would have another drought, and then I would love to coordinate with you, Robert, to see if we could get something going for that. So, just putting it out on your radar.
Yeah, keep me posted. Yeah, we normally do cleanups, in the springtime, but yeah, keep me posted. See, we're getting some new staff for volunteer coordinator, so could be a good opportunity. So thank you.
Yeah. Anything? Do you have anything?
Nope.
No other ideas? Okay, and I will go back to the survey. So there was a question in the survey, and it relates. How important is it to you to protect and preserve? And then there were different categories. So I will read the ones that pertain to open space, the natural environment. So historic or scenic landscapes, 358 individuals said very important. And I'm only going to read the top end, just for what it's worth. Land containing archaeological resources, 298 said it was very important. Woodland or forested areas, 514. Undeveloped land for future generations, 424. Undeveloped land for future rec needs, 300. Land for protection of water resources, 520. Land for protection of wildlife habitat, ecosystem functions, and climate resiliency, 510. Land for groundwater protection, 501. Land for landscape connectivity / connections to other land, 297. Land abutting existing conservation areas, 313. Land for farming, or that is an active ag use, 329. Land that is important to mitigating the impacts of climate change, e.g. floodplains, river corridors, 435. And land that provides public access to water bodies, 342. So I definitely think the community, supports it.
Yeah.
Definitely. So there was that. And then there were a few other things. Just give me a moment.
That was the highest priority that you were reading out?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, each of those were, you could choose not at all important, moderately, or
Right.
yeah. And so
So
I read all the
that's-
high numbers.
yeah.
Yeah. So definitely woodland and forested areas got the highest response.
But they all got, sounds like at least, 30% or
Yeah.
more. That's
Yeah.
significant.
Yeah, you're good with the math. So another question was, what should be the town's priority? And it was broken up into 4 different sections: improve existing rec facilities, which is not pertaining to this topic, so I won't get into that. Acquire and or build additional rec facilities, and then improve existing conservation lands for recreation, habitat, and biodiversity. 300 individuals marked that as a high priority. 285 marked that as a medium priority. And then acquire conservation lands for passive recreation. 243 marked that as high priority, and 245 marked that as medium priority. For the question, would you support town appropriations for acquisition of open space? 87.9% of individuals said yes. Yes. I do want to preface actually that I do have hard copy responses that are not tabulated or calculated. So those numbers may change, but I doubt it'd be minutely. I will put this out there. Would you support the town increasing the CPA fund to 3%? 43.7% of respondents said yes. 33.8% said maybe, and 22.5% said no. 68.7% of respondents said that they do not foresee opportunity on any lot around town to be purchased as open space for permanent protection. But 31.3% said yes. So I read that as people would like more open space, they just don't know where, or they're just not familiar where it could go, which I think is a theme that we've seen throughout this civic engagement process, that people just don't know what's available. Let's see. How often do you use designated conservation areas in Franklin? The highest percentage at 31.6 was a few times per year. Second was 22.9%, and that is 1 to 2 times per month. Then it's 18.6, which is weekly, 14.1, which is once a month, and then almost every day is 6.7%.
Guess I'm kind of surprised by the weekly and the
They're
and
flipped.
the daily.
Yeah. Yeah, so people tend to go weekly versus daily, and they tend to go 2 times per month versus 1 time per month.
I know when I drive by Delcar, a lot of times that parking lot's filled.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was half full tonight,
Or was it?
Was
really?
it?
and it's cold and rainy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still working on getting those signs up. DPW is making signs for our tree city, so that is.
Oh, interesting. Yep,
Yes,
yep.
because we need to plaster that around town. So I'm on the list. They're getting down.
Nice.
I'm in the queue. So those were the questions anyway that directly relate to habitat protection or ecosystem restoration. Sans, people identifying actual parcels on town that they'd like to see protected. So.
Okay.
Have you actually identified parcels?
Yes, yes. I still have to work through the respondents. A lot of responses were properties that are already under contract or have already come in front of Conservation Commission for approval or Planning Board. So unfortunately, we can't consider those ones. But there are plenty that have been vacant lots indefinitely that are really too wet to develop on, which is why they're undeveloped.
Yeah.
Which I think we know that's why it becomes conservation areas. Generally.
Looks like, Robert has his hand raised.
Oh, sure, Robert.
Hey, everybody. The signage thing pops up in my head that, just an idea, and I don't know if this is the town, and I don't remember if Franklin has any, but some of the other towns I've seen have signs at the stream crossings. I know it could be, I don't know how many stream crossings Franklin has, so it could be potentially a potentially significant expense, but other communities have done signs, labeling streams at the roads where the
I
roads
like
cross
that.
them. I know other towns have, like my hometown of Braintree, they did it. But that's just another idea that just popped in my head when you're talking about signage.
Yeah.
Just to get people to know, because people don't know. I mean, they know the Charles River probably, but not all these other little ones.
There's 2 or 3 other streams in town, Misco, Minor. And
Yeah.
I bet most people don't know where they are.
Yeah. Shepherd's, Mine, Mill, Dix, Misco. And then a bunch of unnamed tributaries. I mean, we're a floodplain to the Charles, so it all drains. But Robert, you bring a really good point up. When I met with Stephen Sherlock for the Climate Change podcast, he brought up how once he started to talk to me anyways, or earlier that day when he was driving, he started noticing how wet it was on either side of the road, and he had never seen that before. So I really like that idea, Robert, and that sounds either like a great PR project for DPW to do. They do the signs, which is why I'm bringing them up, or intern, or an Eagle Scout project, or even grant funding through some organization. I like that a lot. And then it'll get people thinking about it when they're out and about. I think it's very important for people to have a connection to the land, because then they'll start to care about it and foster it. Otherwise, if it's just buildings, well, you have people to take care of that, right? Other people. So, that's a good idea.
Okay.
So, yeah, well, that's really all I got.
Sorry, I can't add much more.
No, that's all right. Yeah. So on the horizon again would be forest stewardship plans. I'm working through that. So that's good. And then we'll get a really great comprehensive list and technical deep dive of all the flora and fauna in Franklin. That's my job now as part of the open space plan. I know the civic engagement process has really focused on how open space can work for humans, but there is a significant portion of the plan that is how open space works for everything else. So that's where I will come in, and then, yeah, keep plugging. Keep planting. So, all right. Well, if you want to close it, we can recess early and he can switch over.
Okay, a motion to close?
If we need to, do we need to?
I don't think you need a motion.
No?
No?
I hereby close public good.
Okay. Thank you.
For Egypt in Hebrew is Mitzrayim. And the ayim ending implies something that groups of two. It's a special plural called dual plural, so twos. And tsa'ar in Mitzrayim is narrowness.